morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Dr. Janice Hooker Fortman with Relationship Matters. I hope everyone is having a beautiful, blessed day. Well, I'm going to get back on my soapbox. Last week I got off, but now I'm getting back on. 22 states. The COVID pandemic, the COVID disease is rising. What's happening, people? What's happening? And mostly it's people who are unvaccinated, although they say that there are some who have been fully vaccinated and they are still getting COVID. But at least they're not getting on ventilators, and I guess the symptoms are more like a cold. And I am going to stress again, and I know there are people in my audience who say, get off that soapbox, because I'm not getting the vaccine. Well, I got all three of mine, actually, including my booster. And I want to get out, and I want to, I would love to stop wearing my mask. I'm tired of that mask. But as long as we still have this disease running rampant through, I would say, the world, but especially through the United States, we're still going to have masks, and we're still going to have these mandates. And I know a lot of you out there, you're tired. You're tired, and so am I. So, even if you don't want it for yourself, get it for your children, get it for your parents, your grandparents, your loved ones, because you don't want to get it, and then someone else gets it. Now, my son teaches, and so the mom got it, and she gave it to all of her kids. And they all were sick, very, very. Some were, just a little ill. Some were very, very extremely ill. You don't want to see that. So I'm saying it again, and I guess I'm going to have to stay on this soapbox until we are all vaccinated. All right, so I'm off. I'm off now. Now, who do we have today? Now, I did a Facebook Live, and because I wanted ladies out there to be on tonight. Well, I say tonight because I'm in Chicago and it's nighttime. And because we have a special guest who is going to give us so much value. So let me tell you about her. Her name is Dr. Holly Battey. Now, what does she do? She helps conscious single men and women find the love of their dreams. Did you hear that? The love of their dreams. She has a doctorate degree in clinical psychology. She founded Find Love at Last. And that is to empower you to find the love you've been dreaming of. She's a matchmaker. She's a coach. She's an image consultant, and she's been doing this for over 9 years. She is a dating expert, an inspiring speaker who empowers and advises on dating strategy. That's what we need, right? Online dating, and we know about that, right? Mindset, image, partner suitability, which we're really going to talk about, communication, and commitment. Now, she brings more than 15 years of rich personal dating experience before finding the wonderful man with whom she is happily married. Now, she's in California, she's in San Francisco, but she works with clients all over the world. And now a lot of you have been asking me, a lot of ladies and a couple of men, like, when are you going to have somebody on that's going to help me find a man or help me find my woman? So tonight, I do. I'm going to bring to you Dr. Holly Battey. Hi, Dr. Holly.
Hi, Dr. Janice. How are you?
I'm just great. And how are you doing in sunny California?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that beautiful, warm introduction. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight.
And we are excited to have you here tonight. So I can stop getting, when are you going to have somebody on that's going to talk about that? So I want you to tell us, I want you to start telling us how you got in this particular profession.
Well, it was a long, unexpected journey. I started off as a psychologist working with victims of crime, and I went straight through from kindergarten to doctorate, and I got a bit burnt out. It was a really meaningful career, but I just needed a little time out for me. So I went into executive search, which is what I had done as I worked my way through graduate school. And I was pairing top talent with corporations and startups in Silicon Valley. And I did that for quite a few years until I got laid off. And I took it as a real opportunity once I did to really find my calling, because you don't get a doctorate, without really having a calling and a passion. And so I still hadn't quite found my niche. And so I pursued all my passions, of which there were many, and took me to Africa twice. And when I got back, I decided to start my business back in 2014 as a dating coach. I really wanted to help people expedite their path to love. And a couple years in, I had a business advisor suggest I get into matchmaking. I was saying yes to most things that year, so I said yes to that too. And I've been doing it ever since. And I'm just beside myself because I get to do such fulfilling work that makes such a difference in people's lives.
But why a dating coach? I mean, you've gone from crime victims to why a dating coach?
Well, as I was working in executive search and I'm talking to people about their professional lives, I was always secretly more interested in their personal lives. I think being a psychologist, and also personally, like my biggest desire on this planet was to find soulmate love. And I'd been dating since I was 17. And I had a lot of boyfriends. I had some wonderful men in my life, and I had some not so wonderful men in my life. And after the last of the latter, I decided to do things differently. And shortly thereafter, I met my husband, and my amazing husband, as I call him, because he is. And shortly thereafter, I started my business, helping other people expedite their path to love, because I learned so much along the way. And I thought, it doesn't have to be so hard.
Okay. We're all interested in that. It doesn't have to be so hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see, how do I want to put this? How did you find out what you were doing wrong? First.
Good question. Well, what I knew was, I've never been a person who wanted to repeat the same experience twice, right? We all hear life is so short. And so I never wanted to be that person that, was in the same relationship and picked the same type of guy and didn't take my lessons from my past. So after the last not great relationship I had, I decided that, I'm the common denominator of my experiences, and I didn't want to repeat that experience again. So for the first time in my life, I wrote off men, and I wasn't sure if that would last 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 days, 6 years. I had no idea. But I was really, for the first time, solely focused on myself and who I had to become to attract the one. And so I did a lot of inner work.
Okay, so you said something about attracting, I guess you were attracting the same kind of wrong man, so to speak.
Not necessarily,
okay.
But I certainly didn't want to repeat the last experience I had. And so after that, I just drew a line in the sand and I said, no more. Like, I am going to become all that I was meant to be so that I attract a higher caliber man into my life. But in turn, I have to be the high caliber woman that can receive that man and attract that man. And the thing is, I think I was doing better than most. I've always been more discerning, being a psychologist kind of comes with the territory. But there were certain things that I still needed to learn, right? And so I took 8 months to really focus on myself and to do my inner work. And essentially, I did my own Love at Last masterclass before it existed. And then I kind of reverse engineered the masterclass for my now clients. And I take them through that same experience that I took myself through in those 8 months after that relationship ended. And at the end of those 8 months, I wrote a poem. And I didn't really write poems, but I felt really compelled to write this poem. And I spent 2 months, like kind of painstakingly, making sure that I was articulating my experience. And it was very cathartic, I have to say. And then at the end of those 2 months, as soon as the poem was, met my satisfaction, I then felt compelled to go to a spoken word event, which I'd never felt compelled to perform there before. I always loved, the passionate souls that I would see there. But not loving public speaking at the time, this was certainly didn't feel like it came from me. But regardless, I reached out to a friend and invited him to the spoken word event because I didn't want to go alone. And he said yes. And I actually never read the poem publicly, funny enough. But that same man who joined me that night at the spoken word event became my now husband.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that poem, which rounded out my experience and was super cathartic, was the exact bridge that led me to the man of my dreams, who amazingly I already knew. I just didn't know he was the man of my dreams.
Oh, so he was a friend.
Yes.
Or a colleague, or
he was a friend. Yeah. And I'd known him since college. But I had no idea he was the man of my dreams until I was ready and until he was ready.
Now, I like that what you said about being ready.
Yes.
And I like that what you said about working on yourself. Because I've always felt that you don't get the man or woman of your dreams until, or your soulmate, some people call it, your soulmate, until you are actually ready. And because people wonder, why am I meeting the same kind of guy or the same kind of woman? And, they're not the right kind. But I see what you are saying about working on yourself so that you can receive that person. Now, okay, all right. So, Dr. Holly, how did you know what to work on? I mean, how did you know what was I hate to use the word deficient, but I'm going to use that for a better word.
Sure.
How did you know what to work on?
That's a good question. I don't think I've been asked that before. I don't know. I think, a lot of that time was really about going inside. And I think my intuition ultimately kind of led me through the journey that I needed to take to get to where I was meant to be, to guide me to who I was meant to be and who I was meant to be with. So it was really kind of, I think, intuitively led. Because I didn't actually have a guide at that time. I didn't have a coach or a therapist. I was kind of my own. So, I kind of found the path for myself. And now I created the path for others so that they don't have to kind of figure it out on their own. Because I'm a psychologist and I figured it out on my own. So it was maybe a little bit easier for me. But now you don't have to guess, or you don't have to find your way in the dark or fall down the rabbit holes. There's a path.
Okay. And so, question came in. How do you know that who you think is Mr. Right is actually Mr. Not So Right, or Mr. Wrong?
Yes, great question. Great question. We often don't know until we know, right? Sometimes we have a sense, and sometimes we ignore the red flags. You know, do that, right? We still want him to be the one, that we, just put our blinders on and ignore the red flags and go 100 miles an hour, all the while ignoring these glaring things that eventually catch up, right? So that's one way. Remind me of your question again.
Okay. How do you know that who you think is Mr. Right is actually Mr. Not So Right or Mr. Wrong? Especially, and I'm going to expound on the question that was sent in, especially, you meet someone and you supposedly fall in love there, and you feel that this is who I've been looking for, this is who I've been praying for, and here he is. And what you see, it's like, oh wow, I finally found him. But then as time goes on, it's like, wait a minute, he's actually not Mr. Right, he's Mr. Wrong. Where did I go wrong?
Yes.
Why didn't I see?
Yeah, definitely. I think we probably all had the experience of the red flags and ignoring them, yeah. And, there's no substitute for the variable of time. We can't know someone in a week. We just can't. And so there's certain things that are going to play out over time. So, making sure that you build that into getting to know someone before you're fully committed.
Okay, that sounds easy.
Oh, I didn't say it was easy. Simple, not easy. Yeah. It's hard. It's an emotional game, and it's a roller coaster. It really can be. So I try to help mitigate that roller coaster and help people choose faster so that they don't get stuck in those not right relationships for long.
Okay, then we have a comment from Karen Brown. She says, it seems like people, I'm sure it happens with men, with women, and women with men, are not always truthful. How do you know?
Yeah. Well, that is a very unfortunate thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, often we don't know, right? We don't often know because we, in the beginning, have to take people's word for whatever they say. But over time, when you give it time, then you can make sure that the actions and the words line up, right? That's one of the biggest ways to know if someone has integrity or not. Make sure their words and their actions are integrated. So, but that said, a lot of people do these whirlwind romances, right? Where 3 weeks in, they're sure that he's the one. And I don't think we can really know that early. We can hope, and it can seem really promising. But I'm a big proponent of pacing relationships, especially at the beginning.
Okay, well, I agree. I agree with that. And when you talk about red flags, I know sometimes if you want something so badly that you ignore the red flags.
Yeah.
And I've talked with several people about red flags, and I mean, and I've been I've done that.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm happily married now.
Nice.
But we worked out the red flags. He probably saw red flags. Not too many though. He might have seen one.
Uh-huh. Yes.
but 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 I really like what you said about working on yourself, because I started thinking about me before. Now I've been married. This is my third marriage, so my third time the charm,
Mm-hmm.
and we're happily married.
Good.
And but when I look back and I look at the different men that I thought, you know, were the ones that I was dating, and finally I thought, you know what, you know, there's a string here, you know, and it's not really what I want, and I stepped back and I thought, you know what, my thing was like, God is not going to send me who is for me until I'm ready. And evidently, I am not ready. So I need to work on myself. And I never actually sat down and thought, what is it that I really want? What kind of person do I really want? And then and stick with that. And you know, I stuck with that. So it's really unfortunate that you see so many relationships, you know, that break up because it's the wrong person. You know, it's the wrong. So I can see what you're saying about being a psychologist. It might have been easier. I'm just thinking for you to step back and really work on who you were.
Yeah. And yet, not easy even for me, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I love what you said, Dr. Janice, about, you know, you being the common denominator and being really intentional this time around with, you know, you said you hadn't even thought about what you really wanted. And I think
I just wanted to be married.
You
I
wanted
just wanted to be married. You
Yeah.
know, all
Yeah.
my friends were married, you know, and they were having children. And I think I was the last one. And I was 25. I wanted to be married. And there were all kinds of red flags, but I wanted to be married. And I thought, you know what? I could change him.
Yep.
That's
Nope.
you know, and
Yeah.
happy, you know. But like you said, I never really sat down and like, who is it that I really want? And because I wouldn't have gone through those two, you know, and they were definitely not who I needed, you know, in my life. So, but I like Karen Brown again said, words and actions line up. Thank you for that simple test.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. You know, so many people come to me and they say, you know, Dr. Holly, I was really like hoping I would just run into him at Starbucks or on the street, you know, and that I've been hoping for that for years, you know, and then we have a pandemic on top of it. And, you know, it's really hard to meet men in your living room during a pandemic, right? So hope is wonderful, but we need hope and strategy, right, in order to actualize what we really want. And so when we're trying to build a wealth portfolio, we don't just hope for it, right? We hire someone who gives us strategy and tools. And same with our career. We don't just hope for a wonderful career. It's the same with love, right? We can keep hoping for something to be better, but we usually need to do something different and actually have a strategy. And most people don't think of their love lives in having a strategy because they just want it to happen, you know, which I totally understand. And Hollywood, you know, certainly has its part in rom-coms and love just happening and falling out of the sky. And that works for some. But if you are really wanting to manifest like the relationship of your dreams and it hasn't been happening for you, I do encourage you to do something different and to invest in yourself in a way, toward what you really want in life. And that can make all the difference.
Okay. So I got to take a break. And when we come back, let's delve a little bit more into some strategies.
Okay.
Right. All right. So we'll be right back. Hold on, my computer froze. Oh, I don't believe my computer froze. We're going to not use your computer anymore. I can't even tell her. I can tell private chat. I can't even do that to let her know we froze. The computer is frozen. I know the computer is frozen. Okay. We're having some technical difficulties. Now I've been told that, okay, we're back. Oh my God. And everybody's calling me. Yeah, we froze for a moment. And I was told, but we can still see you. But I couldn't see me and I couldn't see you. The internet is really something, right?
It is. It's so great when it works, isn't it?
It's great when it works. It's great when it does not. It's not so great when it works. So a question came in right before we froze. And that was, do opposites really attract?
Great question. They do. They attract. They just don't usually last.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
So now why do you say that?
Well, that's what the research shows. So we tend to get along better with people that are more similar to us. So like attracts like often. And so, in the matchmaking work that I do values-based matchmaking because our values tend not to change over time. And the things that are really important to us, it's really great to have a partner who values those same things. So, and they tend not to change over time. So when we're making life decisions and setting goals, it's really wonderful to have that in common with our partners. So I definitely recommend choosing someone that is more like you than unlike you. Not in every way necessarily. Like there's certain things that are more complementary, like introvert, extrovert, You don't want two introverts, it's not a very engaging conversation with two introverts at the table, where you get two extroverts and you're talking over each other. So there's certain pieces that you want to be complementary, but for the most part, you want similar values.
Okay. So let's go into a little bit of something else. What about online dating? Can you really get to know someone?
Well, I think how you meet is less important than how you are when you show up. Um, you know, meeting is the most important thing. So whether you meet online or meet through a matchmaker or through a friend or something, how you meet is far less important than how you show up when you meet. So, when you do meet online, especially as women, we have to be safe, and have precautions and just navigate it in a more cautious way, I would encourage. When you know someone through a friend, you have that person in common, and so that's a little bit different. But yeah, you can get to know someone that you meet online just as well as you know someone or get to know someone that you meet in another way. For
Okay.
sure. It's just a slightly different process.
Okay, I asked this question because I had young lady on who had met someone online, and they corresponded for over 2 years, but in the end it was a scam, and she was scammed out of over a couple of $1 million actually. Because she was a businesswoman and he was supposed to be this, international businessman, and they were doing this together, and they just couldn't ever quite meet up, and like she said, she saw a lot of red flags, but she wanted a relationship so badly. And she was a widow,
That's when we have to watch, because when we want the end game more than actually that person, we often just have our blinders on. That is such a sad story.
Yes.
I wish I had been working with her, because I have a good radar for scams.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You have to be far more discerning when you meet someone online.
Yeah.
You just do. And never wait 2 years to meet someone.
Thank you.
Never. Don't wait a year. Don't wait 6 months. No, never. Your life is too valuable to put on hold and wait for someone for that long without confirming and meeting them in person.
Okay. So we have a question from Sandy Barney Ennis. Why are women more into their relationships than men? And why does the fizzle go flat after a while?
Good questions. Well, I think as women, we're socialized. We're just socialized to be relationship oriented, I certainly have male friends, though, that are relationship oriented too. It's just kind of part of how we're wired as women, I think. And why does the fizzle go after a while? What a great question. It doesn't always fizzle. And so I have friends, and in my marriage, it hasn't fizzled. So I think a lot of it is just choosing differently next time and making sure you have those ingredients that really make love last and really keep the fire strong. Attraction is one part, but, it's also important to have a really solid friendship. You have to really like your partner as well as love them. And I think liking sometimes is even more important than loving at times.
I really agree with that. And this time, when we got married, we wrote down exactly what we wanted.
Wow.
And being authentic, being specific.
Yes.
This is what I want, and I think that helps too. As far as if you're thinking marriage, if you're thinking, or a long-term relationship, if you're not going to get married, but a long-term relationship that you want to be in,
Yeah.
and you have to be specific, because
Yeah.
when I say specific, I had a friend, and she said, all I want is a man who really, really, really loves me. Well, that's what she got. But there were some other things. And she said, you know what? I really should have been more specific, So
Yes. I'd love to talk more about that, because, we often just say, oh, I just want someone to adore me, or I just want a husband. And, like you had said, you just wanted to be married, right? At 25, you were the last of your girlfriends and you just wanted to join the club. And often we get what we want, right? So we have to be really careful. Yes, and really clear about and intentional about what we really want, because optimally we don't want to just be married, we want to be happily married, right? And with our partner, hopefully we're getting clearer and clearer about what we're wanting moving forward, that each relationship gets us clearer than we were the last time. But without that, it's like showing up to the airport and saying, I want to go on vacation, and the ticket rep says, great, where do you want to go? When do you want to go? And if you don't know, you're never going to get to that destination. And so the universe works very similarly, where we have the more specific that we can get, the more intentional we can get, the more strategy in there as well, the greater the likelihood of us manifesting it.
Okay. So you got to work your relationship, ladies. It's a strategy. You got to be strategic.
Yes. Intentional.
And intentional. Well, I had a question that came in here via text. How do you know if it's a red flag, or if it's an area you haven't developed in? In other words, you see it as a red flag, but it's really something you're not used to, or you need to understand more.
Interesting question. Yeah, I think sometimes we are specific about the wrong things sometimes, like a lot of women want a tall man. Nothing wrong with it, right? I like tall men too. But if we require that our matches are 6 feet or taller, we actually eliminate 88% of the domestic male population. And most people don't know that. So any women in this country who require 6 feet or taller are all fighting over 12%, the same 12% of men. So if we don't know that, then our choices are far more limited, right? If we drop our height range 1 or even 2 inches, it opens up millions more men. So all that to say, a lot of times women and men too are specific about the wrong things, or too specific about the wrong things, and not specific enough about the things that really sustain love over time. One example of that is that we tend to overvalue looks and undervalue character. So, I had a recent client say to me, gosh, before I did the masterclass, I was, weighing looks like 70 or 80%. And I really wasn't looking at character too much. And now it's completely different. Because, here's the thing. If your relationship is based on looks alone, and looks aren't sustainable, your relationship won't be either, right? And there's certain, character is something that makes someone more attractive over the years. We probably all had the experience of meeting someone who maybe we weren't like attracted to, like a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, but they got more attractive over time because of who they are as a person. They're more beautiful on the inside. And the opposite happens too. We can meet at 12 and be blown out of our minds, right, with how attractive someone is. And they get less attractive over time because they don't have the character. They don't have those wonderful qualities. And so attraction can also lessen over time. So you definitely want baseline attraction, but you also want those wonderful qualities that just make someone, a wonderful partner over time.
Okay, and there's another comment from Leanne, and she says, I've made a vision board for my next man. Am I being realistic?
Good question. Well, I love that you've created a vision board, because you're getting really specific about what you want. And what was the second part, Dr. Janice?
She says, am I being realistic?
Well, that's a great question. That's a little hard to answer just because I don't know the specifics, but I am all for going after what you most want and need. Most women go after what they want, but they don't really pay attention to what they need. And but we tend to be happiest when our needs are met, right? Wants are usually an ego, and needs are usually soul-based. So we want to go after what we need and less about what we want. However, I love the vision board idea. I love her getting clear. And there's certain things that you want to be realistic with, and there's certain things that you want to just really expand into and really lean into your desire, because the universe wants you to have your desires. You were intended to have the love of your dreams, or else it wouldn't be in your heart.
So how do you discern between your wants and your needs?
Good question. We do that in the masterclass.
Okay.
So we do that there. We also have VIP matchmaking worksheets that are part of the masterclass. So that helps us drill down really deep on demographics, height, eye color, hair color, education, geography, things like that. We also have a values inventory. We look at personality attributes and activities, and we do a bunch of worksheets to get really clear about what you want. But we also look at what you need, because it really needs to be a semblance of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't really need a man that's over 6 feet. You might want. You might want a man.
Yes. And we all have different kind of wants and needs, and we don't, a lot of times people come to me and they say, I know this sounds silly, but I really want this. And so part of the work I do with clients is letting them know we want enough people to qualify, if you will, with your criteria, so that we can drill down deeper to the things that really matter. So if someone says to me, for example, Dr. Holly, I really want my soulmate. And I say, great, like in terms of geography, like how close are you willing to go? Well, he needs to be within 10-mile radius. Not so realistic. Not so realistic. Yeah. So that's one example of being realistic, but also going after what you really, really want and need.
Okay. All right. So I have another question here from Sandy. She says, do you think women should date and marry younger men? I believe women have more energy than men.
So this is an interesting one, because it seems like over 40, men and women want to date younger. So that makes it very difficult if they want to date each other. There can only be one younger person unless you're the same age in every relationship, right?
Okay.
And so I don't think there's an across-the-board rule on this. I think it's whatever works for you. I think it is important to have a range. I have certain people come to me talking about the realistic versus the idealistic. One client of mine, when she came to me, she was in the age range of plus or minus 3 years. But she kept complaining that the men she dated weren't as mature as she is. So I said, well, I really think, and she's in her late 30s. And so I said, I really think you need to be dating in the 40s, especially in the Bay Area, because men north of 40 often have it together more than men who are under 40. And they tend to be more motivated. So in that regard, it's just very different and very individual.
Yeah, I think so too, because some younger women really flourish with older men.
Yeah.
Rather than men their own age.
Yeah.
And then some women, younger men.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is younger than me. So,
who? And mine's older. So, right? It can work. It can work both ways. I think the important thing to remember is that there's biological age and there's energetic age.
Okay.
Right? When I was matching one of my favorite matchmaking clients a number of years ago, he was 69, but he was the most healthy, virile 69-year-old I've ever met in my life. And so when I went to match him, I had a match who was a lovely woman. She was a little younger than he was, but I think she was maybe 66. But she kind of exuded grandmother energy, which there's nothing wrong with.
Right.
This client of mine, he presented maybe like a early 50s, mid 50s type of guy in terms of energy. This man, when I would go out to my waiting room, he would be doing push-ups in my waiting area. This is like how healthy and, just spry he was. And so, so when I met with her, she was lovely, but their energy it wasn't a match.
They're not compatible.
No. So I didn't introduce them.
Right.
That wouldn't make sense. So just bear in mind energetic age as well as biological age, and make sure your range is enough, because if it's not, you're leaving out potential matches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. So I had a comment that came in via text. It says, true love doesn't just happen. It requires nurturing and work.
Mm. Oh, I'm so glad this came in. Okay, so I have thoughts on this.
Okay.
So the dominant narrative in our culture is that relationships are a lot of work. And I want to debunk that myth.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because when you choose well, it doesn't have to feel like a lot of work.
Wait a minute. Someone is looking that I know of, and I just said that today. Not supposed to be hard.
Not supposed to be hard, but that's what we hear all the time, right? That relationships are hard work, and if you're not putting in the work, then. But honestly, when you choose well, it doesn't have to feel like work. My marriage doesn't feel like work. My best friend's marriage doesn't feel like work. It's not to say that it doesn't require effort, and it doesn't mean that some seasons aren't. There's times for work, but it's not an all day, every day, type of thing. That's not what was intended for us. There are definitely the seasons when we might seek counseling or get help or support. And I encourage couples to do that sooner rather than later, because too many wait until it's too late, until they have one foot in the divorce attorney's office and one foot in the therapist's office, and that is too late.
Right. It's so many questions. I mean, you just don't know how many comments and questions. I'm like, we don't have enough time for all of these comments and questions that's coming in, But one of them is, what's the difference between? I'm reading it. What's the difference between being in love and loving someone? Yeah.
It's hard to answer that. I think it's a subjective experience. And when you're in love, you know it. And, I remember asking my clients when they would come to me and we'd have our first conversation. If they had been married, I wouldn't ask them if they'd been in love before. However, because I assumed that they had if they had gotten married. But I learned over time that I actually needed to ask them if they'd been in love before, whether they'd been married or not. Because one of my clients had been married multiple times and he'd never been in love before. And so just because someone's, there's different reasons that people get married, and not everybody marries for love. And some people love their partners, love their spouses, but they're not in love with them. And some people don't even know that they weren't in love with people until they are in love for the first time. And then they look back retrospectively at their relationships and realize, I actually had never been in love before this time. Isn't that fascinating? My thing is, if you're not sure if you've been in love before, you haven't been. Because you know when you've been in love before. It's not so different than have you had an orgasm.
Okay.
We know when we have it.
Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitive.
Wow. So the time is just, let me see, we got one more. I hope we have, Karen Brown says, mind blowing. That's how you know.
Yes.
Mind blowing. Well, Dr. Holly, this time has just just flown by. Yeah. I was looking at your website, and one thing I saw a quote that you had, and the quote was, "What you seek is seeking you."
Yes.
I love that.
Yes, it's so true. I remember before my husband and I got together, and I was wondering, where is he? Like probably a lot of your viewers are wondering. And I remember saying a prayer, to my future partner, not knowing who that was, but saying a prayer to him, wishing him the best and whatever he was going through at the moment, knowing that we would be ready at the same time. And so say a prayer to your future partner.
Okay, ladies, you hear that? Say a prayer to your future partner. Now, if the ladies want to get in contact with you,
yes,
how do they do that?
Great question. So I'd actually love to offer your audience the first 5 women that contact me, women or men, actually, I work with both. The first 5 that reach out to me, and my website, I think, is scrolling across the bottom there, who reach out to me at my website at findloveatlast.com. I'm happy to offer you a complimentary dating success call. And we can talk about where your love life is now and where you want it to be. And I'm happy to offer up, whatever insight I can to them. So you can find me at findloveatlast.com. I also have a Facebook group for single men and women, and it's called Conscious Singles, from Single to Soulmate. And you can join me there, and I will inspire you along the journey to love, give you tips and tricks, and we have events coming up, and can share more about my masterclass. I have a new one starting in January. And I also just recently launched what I call Dating Club, which is a club that I have where I support you in manifesting the love of your dreams.
Now, what did you say your Facebook, so I can type it in and I can run it across the lower third?
Yeah, so it's called Conscious Singles, from Single to Soulmate.
From Single to Soul. Make sure I can mate. Okay, let me put that on there. All right, let's go. Okay, that's Conscious Singles From single to, forgot the T, to soulmate.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, ladies, men, if you want to get on her Facebook page, it's Conscious Singles from Single to Soulmate on Facebook. And if you want that call, go to findloveatlast.com. Thank you so much, Dr. Holly. This has been wonderful. You have given us so much information. And ladies, I hope you were listening. First of all, get yourself right and say a prayer to your future dream guy. All right. So
thank
Dr.
you so
Holly,
much for having me, Dr. Janice. This is a total joy.
It's been great. It's been great. I really enjoyed it myself. If I was single, I'd get on. I know they last, but I found my love. All right. All right, then. You have a beautiful, blessed rest of your evening, Dr. Holly.
Thank you. You too.
All righty. Wow. You know, that has been great. I hope you all got a lot out of that. I see some other comments, and Maxine says, very interesting. Sarah says, I'm on my knees. All right, Sarah. Karen says, I'm writing in my journal right now. And also Karen says, what you seek is seeking you. I sure hope so. So this has been wonderful. We'll have to have Dr. Holly back, especially after you all have had your call with her, because, you know, I want to know. It's been great. Next week, I want you to be here because this is who we have. We're going to be on the same vein. We're going to talk about love relationships. So I want you to tune in next week, next Thursday. Remember, relationships matter, and there are all kinds of relationship matters. So I want to see you again next week when we have Dr. Capitoria. I like to call her Dr. Cappuccino. She doesn't like that, but I like to do that anyway. So we'll see you again next week. Everyone, have a beautifully blessed rest of your day. Bye-bye.